Alright, hey guys. So, this is a build that I threw together, primarily made for battlegrounds. But you can run it in open world too, it's still pretty solid. Nothing super crazy or special. It's something I threw together primarily for group play, but I think you can still work this fine if you run solo. Maybe some adjustments will need to be made. But this is something I threw together mainly for group play, and so just while you're watching, remember that if something looks kind of funny to you about the build. So start off, I just like to put all the points into stamina. I'm running Imperial right now because I like having some boosts to my max resource pools. And so we'll start with the sets. Is pretty standard DK stuff, running Blood Spawn, 7th Legion, and I like running Witchman because I like the 4-piece it gives, like some stam regen, some health, some extra weapon damage, and then that 5-piece is just made for stam DKs because it helps, it gives you what Battle Roar should be. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it does give you a big boost, especially coupled with like Blood Spawn. And if you wanted to run like Werewolf Hide instead of 7th Legion, if you want to be really, if you like the medium build, that'd be really good. Because then that means with something like with Heroic Slash, and everything else that DK has, you could really easily pop out a lot of ultimates. But some alternative sets I guess you could run, because I just run 5 heavy, 2 medium, and I run the Witchman jewelry. I like having just a lot of extra stamina, so I still have these on robust to run sword and board dual wield. I guess you could run 2-hand, but I like having the whole premise of this build is that it's like a debuffing build. It's like a like laceration build on steroids, because we have right now on the front on your sword and board, you've got just right now I'm using a weapon damage enchant, like a berserker enchant, just to get the weapon damage up even higher. And then on the back, on the it doesn't matter what you use, of course, for the sword and board weapon, but on your back bar here, you want to use double axes. And for the enchantments on these, just to increase like the debuffing capabilities, I put a Crusher enchantment, which is pretty much every time you hit them with your dual wield, you're going to automatically decrease their physical spell resist. And on the other one, I put decrease weapon spell damage. So from now on, it's pretty much whenever you hit somebody with your dual wield, which is usually what you're going to start with, from that point on, they're always going to be debuffed, even if you mess up your rotation or something, or if, I don't know, things change in the middle of a battle or something. The nice thing is that you don't have to spend stamina on your abilities to debuff somebody. Sure, it's not like, incredible or anything. It's not, 1500 physical spell resist isn't anything to write home about, but it is nice to have a little extra, especially if you're running low on stamina, to use your abilities. But all that having been said, I'm running defending on one and precise on the other, just to keep my crit rating up a little bit. And I'm running precise on my mace, or my front bar right now. I might change that to defending just because I like having a little extra tankiness, a little extra resistances in the back, which is really nice. But I run just 5 heavy infused pieces to get those resources up, and a lot of impenetrable. And I'm running a sturdy on one piece, and then on the shield, because it's nice to have a little extra resource, like a little extra something to keep your stamina up, just to decrease the cost of blocking. I guess for alternative sets, you could run like Ravagers instead of 7th Legion if you like. I mean, it gives more weapon damage, the effect lasts longer, and it gives you max health instead of health regen, which I think is pretty nice. And maybe I'd run that if I hadn't already golded out some of my 7th Legion pieces, or if I had more money. But I like Ravagers would be a nice pick over 7th Legion. It's got a longer, like, like the cooldown isn't really a big deal on Ravagers because you know, the effect lasts for 10 seconds and it's a 10-second cooldown, so it just wouldn't overlap. And 7th Legion, you know, pretty much is the same way. The cooldown is 2 seconds and it lasts for 5, and it gives you that it's not super juicy, but it is nice when you like factor in all your other healing received buffs. But that's pretty much it for the sets. Let's go on to the skill bar. We'll start on the front bar. I like shielded assault over invasion just because I like a little damage. I like a little damage shield, keep you tanky, make sure, for now at least, you don't get really opened up if someone catches you when you charge in, so that they can't crit you. Like the damage, I wish the damage shield was just a little bit stronger on this ability, but it's all right. You know, it's a little something. Bread and butter DK, stam DK move, heroic slash. We all know what this is, a little major heroism. And here's where here's where all the debuffing starts. With this ability, you're snaring them, you're hitting them with minor maim. That's 2 quick, really strong debuffs, and you get minor heroism, you know, get the ultimates built up as fast as possible. You got reverberating bash. You can use this, or you could use fossilize, because, you know, it's pretty nice having fossilize, because it won't, they can't block it, they can't dodge roll it, and so they're always going to get hit with it. It's kind of like a checkmate. It's kind of like a checkmate ability. So, but I like running reverberating bash because, oddly enough, it does actually hit kind of hard for something that's primarily used as a stun. And nice 3-second stun. And then also, of course, the reason you pick reverberating bash over something else is because you hit them with major defile, 1 more debuff, and that's really nice when you get someone like half health or so, and then their healing is really strongly debuffed, and you're trying to get them down lower. And then the standard, you know, vigor, and I'm using igneous shield right now just because I'm sure you've noticed, but I like to tank a little bit more. So I'm using igneous right now because I like it's a little bit stronger of a damage shield, and I like having some extra damage shield stuff. And this is one of the things where it's the group element of this build is shown. So I'm using Magma Shell right now because it's nice to be able to tank something if you need it, and coupled with Witchman, this pretty much always restores all your resources to max. And, you know, something like my magic is not anything to write home about again, but you know, going from low health, low stamina to almost full health stamina, that's pretty nice. And, you know, you're pretty much invincible while you're using it. And I picked Magma Shell, or you could pick Corrosive Armor. It's nice to just melt somebody in maybe 1.5 rotations with that, because it's, you know, it costs the same amount. It costs the same amount, and it does the same damage reduction. But the reason I picked Magma Shell is because when you activate it, nearby allies gain a damage shield for 50% of their max health for 9 seconds. So whether you want to pop that when you go into an engagement, because you can still build up your ultimate really fast on this build, whether you want to pop that when you're running into an engagement, or maybe it's getting a little dicey and you're saving it, you can use that. Get all your resources back. If you're maybe half resources, half stamina, half health, you're guaranteed to get all your health and stamina back because of Witchman. And you're going to help your allies out because you give them a pretty fat damage shield. And this is already in Cyrodiil. Because I mostly do this I mostly play battlegrounds I'll do Cyrodiil with the boys every once in a while. But like, that's 50% of somebody's health. That's a pretty hefty damage shield to have, and that's one of the big group things. I mean, if you don't want to use that, you could either use corrosive armor. If you want to use a really defensive ultimate, you could use like a spell wall. You could use shield wall, spell wall, whichever one you want to use, because that's still really cheap, significantly cheaper than magma shell is. And here on our back bar is where the real debuffing and laceration comes in. You've got blood craze, you know, your basic dot. You could of course use venomous claw if you wanted to, but I like to use blood craze because dual wield passives, all your dual wield passives come in, and you still get your ardent flame passives from stank breath here, and that's the second one. And I also like that it gives you a little bit of a heal. It gives you a little bit of a heal. And on top of all your other DK and heavy armor passives, it heals a little bit more. And then you have your stank breath here, which one more debuff and laceration, because it gives them major fracture, which is nice to have. And you could always too, if you wanted to, you could run like pierce armor instead of heroic slash, and then put venom claw here. Pierce armor, ransack, whichever one you want to call it, because pierce armor gives the major breach to decreasing spell resistance. And so I like to use this because it's another dot, it's a snare, sort of, with how they rework the Ardent Flame passive, and it's major fracture, which is nice. Hardened armor, it's a big buff to your defense, and it's a little bit of a damage reflector. It's not huge or anything, and it's you get baby damage shield. I really wish they'd actually make this a little bit stronger, because even at 25k health, 1.9k, I know they're like buffing the duration next patch, but that's kind of a really sad damage shield. Igneous shield does more than that, and we all know what everybody thinks of this ability lately. But that bothers me a little bit. That I wish they'd make the, and it's nice that they're increasing the duration, but I really wish too they'd buff the damage shield to be about 15-20% of your max health. I just feel like the damage shield's really weak overall. And Flying Blade, one more snare, Major Brute. You could pick the other, I forget what it's called, the other one, but I really like that range you get on this. You can, maybe if you're late to an engagement or something, maybe you died in a battleground. Maybe you died in a battleground and you're running back, or you're just running behind. It's nice to have that range on that attack, because this thing does, I think the tooltip on this is actually, yeah, it's a little bit higher than on your core DPS here, so it's still really strong. And then once again, dual wield passives. It will get stronger the lower their health gets, which is nice. And it's another snare, so one more debuff. And then I was never really totally sure what to put into this last. I was always having trouble finding out what to put into this last slot. So I defaulted to Blade Cloak, because I think it's a really interesting move. I think that was really the best word I could put to it, because it makes you a walking dot. Let's start there. And then while the ability is up, you take 25% less damage from cleaves or AoEs, whichever one you want to call them. And I think both morphs are really good. Just, you could go with Deadly Cloak, which is just stronger. You know, as long as you can get your damage to where this thing hits for about 300, 400 plus per tick, that's good enough, because you've already got 2 dots, active dots. Then you always want to use axes on your back bar because of this passive that gives you a chance to bleed. This bleed does not play around. Even when it doesn't crit, this bleed does not play around. And when you use 2 axes and you do a bunch of heavy attacks, which you should with dual wield, light and heavy attacks, this bleed does not play around. This bleed does not care about your feelings, especially when it crits. And so I like Quick Cloak just because it is nice for a DK to be able to run around. Like, it doesn't clear snares or anything. You could definitely run this if you want to switch some abilities out and run the little the new morph of reflect. The new morph, I think it's reflective plate, that gives you immunity to roots and snares for 2 seconds. Yeah, if you ran that with this, that'd be really cool because you got some. Then you would definitely be able to move around. You could definitely be able to move. But right now, yeah, I really like Blade Cloak. You know, maybe in the future I'll just switch it out to Venom Claw to get some more dot power. Maybe switched out for something defensive like reflective scales, or probably not any probably not any of this. But with the incoming nerf to major evasion, I definitely wouldn't recommend switching. You better get used to major evasion, not doing the dodge chance. And we all know what this right here is. I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna say anything else. We all know what this is. But I mainly play in no CP. But if you ask me, the CP stuff is really straightforward, especially with how high the cap is for PvP these days. I really think that this build performs pretty well, but I'm running Witchman right now because I'm kind of lazy, and because for whatever reason the Bone Pirate necklace keeps eluding me. But if you ran Bone Pirate over Witchman, it would still be really good because that's a lot of regen and a lot of stamina that you get, and it'd probably make up for the weapon damage bonus that Witchman gives if you ran Bone Pirate, because I'm putting all 3 of my jewelry enchantments or weapon damage. So there are a few times that if you are trying to save your ultimate or you don't have one, that you can definitely get gassed on this build. You can definitely get gassed and run out of stamina. So that's one weakness, which I'm sure Bone Pirate would take care of that weakness. No, I have no doubt of that, because Bone Pirate is crazy, and especially with Dubious Cameron Throne, I think it would be great. But I like to run, right now I like my Witchman. I think it's really strong, but Bone Pirate would definitely be a good alternative set. Hopefully I've covered everything and haven't forgotten anything, and just let me know what you guys think about the build down below in the comments. Peace out, boys and girls.